Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. My book, Cassandra Killjoy, Paranormal Private Eye, The Search for the Swordsman, is available on Amazon.com. You can buy your copy right now by following the link in the description box. And for more information, feel free to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Enjoy the video. Alas, the universe reached the balance between good and evil. But like all things in life, we must say goodbye to the past and embrace the future, as it was time for the next generation to take over. Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. I'm Erod and I'm the Blockbuster Buster, and welcome back to a look back at the DC animated universe. Now, when we last left off, Steven Spielberg and Gene McCurdy establishing Warner Brothers Animation to create Tiny Toon Adventures started the miraculous domino effect that led to the creation of one of the greatest cartoons ever made, Batman the Animated Series. Eventually, Warners would try their hand at running their own Saturday morning lineup, which couldn't do without some of that DC animated magic. So a second show was created for the franchise, Superman the Animated Series, which was successful enough to warrant 3 seasons, a revival of Batman, and the first crossover in the franchise that critically acclaimed The World's Finest. The DC animated team's original plan was to follow up Superman the Animated Series with a Justice League cartoon. This is evident in the fact that most of the members of the Justice League are introduced in the latter seasons of Superman, and there were plans to have an episode introducing Wonder Woman and one where we would see all the heroes team up for the first time ever. Unfortunately, those episodes were never produced, as a new head of children's programming was appointed for the Kids WB, and that individual failed to renew Superman the Animated Series for a 4th season. Furthermore, he had no interest in a Justice League cartoon. I'm going to repeat that for those of you who missed it. Initially, the WB network passed on Justice League the Animated Series. Are you starting to sense a pattern in these videos? Anyway, instead, they had a very specific vision for the future of the Kids WB. From that point forward, they wanted a more youthful vibe for the network and were only greenlighting shows featuring young heroes. So the Warner Brothers animation team were specifically tasked with providing the DC Comics equivalent, and the network was particularly interested in a show featuring a young Batman. The Night of Tomorrow. Bruce Timm understandably hated the idea of a show about a teenage Batman and was very much on the fence as to whether or not he wanted to work on the series. His biggest hang-up was that he just didn't believe that Bruce Wayne would ever give up being Batman. And if he did, there would have to be a really good reason for him to do so. He felt this way until Alan Burnett pitched him the first scene, which features an elderly Bruce Wayne still trying to fight crime as Batman, only to have a heart attack and feeling so helpless that he resorts to picking up a gun to defend himself.
Never again.
So Bruce would have no choice but to recruit a young Terry McGinnis to take up his mantle. Bruce Timm was blown away by the idea and was officially on board. But just because they had to adhere to the WB's Young Hero policy, it didn't mean they had to adhere to any of their other policies. Batman Beyond premiered January 10th, 1999, and it would go on to be the darkest and most violent show in the entire franchise. But it was such a massive hit that the network had trouble telling the creators to tone it down. And even when they would give them notes, like, for example, allowing Terry's younger brother Matt to find out his secret identity and including him in some of his adventures, the creators would openly ignore them. Batman Beyond remains one of the most respected and beloved entries of the DC animated universe. It featured a lot of the same creative team from their previous shows, and as per usual, a star-studded cast. Featuring Kevin Conroy reprising his role as Bruce Wayne, Stockard Channing as Commissioner Barbara Gordon, Sherman Howard as Blight, Cree Summer as Max Gibson, and Will Friedle as Terry McGinnis. The series would go on to have a stellar 3-season run, which concluded with one of the most popular animated features in the history of the franchise, The Return of the Joker. As the title indicates, Mark Hamill is back as the Clown Prince of Crime. And now, Bruce must face his dark past if he's going to help Terry defeat his greatest enemy. And I cannot emphasize this enough. This remains one of the most impactful and impressive entries in the entire franchise. There is a really good reason why it holds such a legendary status within the fan base.
What are you doing? Fighting dirty. The real Batman would never... Told you didn't know me.
More animated features were planned, but unfortunately, due to a delay in the release date and poor marketing, The Return of the Joker performed very poorly, and all future animated features were cancelled. More on that in a future video. The good news is, this would be the last time we would see the Night of Tomorrow. Shock to your system. The demand for young heroes at the WB network was at an all-time high, and some of the members of the Warner Brothers animation team saw this as the perfect opportunity to create a show based on one of DC's newest and brightest stars, Static. Now, for those of you who don't know, published under DC's Milestone brand, created by Dennis Cohen and the late great Dwayne McDuffie in 1993, Virgil Hawkins is an average teen, growing up in the city of Dakota, until the day that he is dosed with an experimental chemical during a gang war, and gains electromagnetic powers, which he then employs to fight crime and keep the people of his city safe, as Static. The animated series Static Shock premiered on September 23rd, 2000, and would go on to be one of the most successful shows in the history of the Kids WB, maintaining steady ratings throughout its 4-season run. And featuring the vocal talents of Kevin Michael Richardson as Robert Hawkins, Danny Cooksey as Hotstreak, Gary Anthony Sturgis as Ebon, Michelle Morgan as Sharon Hawkins, Jason Marsden as Richie Foley aka Gear, and the great Phil Lamar as Virgil Hawkins aka Static. It is also one of the best reviewed shows in the history of the network, as it was one of the very few cartoons that would boldly tackle real-life issues like gang war, gun violence, poverty, and racism. The series also holds the distinction of being one of the very few to have the creator of the comic actually work on the show, as Dwayne McDuffie would occasionally serve as a consultant and even went on to write a few of the episodes. And on top of all of those awesome facts, Static Shock would also go on to be the nexus of the entire franchise, as it is the series that crossed over with all the other shows the most. There were 2 crossovers with Batman. The first one was The Big Leagues, where Static teams up with Batman and Robin to stop the Joker and his new gang of Dakota-based metahumans.
That looks fun. Let me try.
Static and the Dark Knight would join forces yet again in Hard as Nails, where Harley and Ivy tried to manipulate a metahuman team from Dakota into a life of crime.
But how did you know? Where did he go?
The kid's got style.
The High Voltage hero would also meet the Man of Steel in Toys in the Hood, where they joined forces to stop the Toy Man from creating a duplicate of Virgil's friend Daisy, but with the mind of one of his dolls, Darcy.
Superman? That's Superman and Static? Honest, what's a brother gotta do to get a little recognition?
But as exciting as it is for Static to team up with the world's finest, it is even more thrilling to see him work with a hero within his own age range. Young Justice. The High Voltage hero would finally meet the Night of Tomorrow in the crossover Future Shock, where Virgil is accidentally transported to future Gotham, where he meets Terry McGinnis, and the two agree to work together to save a high-profile hostage from the Cult of Cobra, who turns out to be Static's future self. This crossover is awesome. Not only did we get to see 2 of the greatest icons in the DCAU working together, but their chemistry was superb. Not to mention fascinating, because even though they might be both teens, they are teens from different generations and have vastly different perspectives.
You sent us off on a wild goose chase. We probably missed the real contact and you want gratitude? I just can't see how you could have grown up to be one of the world's greatest heroes.
And seeing future Static in action was pretty freaking exciting. It's fair to say that the future of the DC animated universe was secure, even if the WB network made their occasional difficult demand. But soon, there would come a day where the Warner Brothers animation team would leave the confines of the WB network, and the franchise would become unlimited.